Breaking the gray.
Sarah, it has been a few weeks. How are you?
Yes, really good. Thanks, Russ.
Good. Where are you today? I know you're a world traveler, that you've been locked up, but you've been able to get out a little bit. Where are you?
This week I'm in not so sunny The Hague in Holland.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you feeling? How's everything going with you?
Yes, really good. Really good. I'm still doing the keto. I'm still doing the sleep. I'm still keeping up a lot of the hacks. So all good. How about you? You've just been away.
Same. Yeah, I was on a little bit of a vacation. We went to Mexico, and it was very hard to keep my diet going with all the temptations of alcohol and the food. But I did get the new Apple Watch, and because of you, I'm now obsessed with tracking every single individual data point of my life. And quite honestly, I don't know what some of it means, but I've been looking online saying, what does that number mean? And I'm realizing one thing is in my room, my UV monitor went up to 7 yesterday. And I'm like, that's not good. I need to get some drapes in here or something. I'm getting a lot of sunlight, which is probably great, but probably a little too much.
You can never have too much sun. We'll get you on sun monitoring. Don't you worry, Russ. We'll sort you out.
So today we are very fortunate. You gave me a little bit of a sneak peek of our guest, and I'm very excited to chat today. So why don't you kick it off and let's introduce him.
Yes, today we have Dr. Terry Wahls, who I'm also very excited to talk to because I had the pleasure to meet Dr. Wahls a few years ago when I was making a movie about some aspects of biohacking. So hello, Dr. Wahls. It's so lovely to have you on again. And it's great to have you on at this time. You know, we've just come out of we're coming out of this crazy pandemic. I'm interested to hear your take on it and also how you've been doing. And I've seen online you have some fantastic courses. So very welcome to the podcast, Dr. Wahls.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a total pleasure. Yeah, like I said, we did meet before and we did some filming where we were going through because I don't know if you want to just give a bit of your backstory for people who don't know it.
So let me take you back 20 years ago. My neurologist says, Terry, this could be bad or really, really bad. Now, at that time, I'm thinking about my 20 years of relentlessly worsening trigeminal neuralgia, and I'm praying fatal as opposed to disabling. In 3 years, I'm in a tilt-recline wheelchair. I take Novantrin infusions, then Tysabri infusions. Nothing helps. I'm too weak to sit up at my desk. My face pain turns on. My 10-year-old daughter hugs me as tears stream down my face. But I'm a doc, so I go to PubMed and I start reading the basic science and I begin experimenting on myself. And the speed of my decline slows. I discover electrical stimulation of muscles. Ask my physical therapist, can I try that? He lets me try. Hurts like hell. But when I'm done, I feel great, and I begin doing e-stim to as much pain as I can tolerate. My physicians, all of them say, functions once lost will not come back because I have secondary progressive MS. I add meditation. I redesign my paleo diet based on all the science I have been studying. 3 months later, I sit at my desk, my zingers, the trigeminal neuralgia, it's gone. 6 months later, I walk without a cane. And then for the first time in 6 years, with my son, Zach, jogging alongside on the left, my daughter, Zeb, on the right, I'm on my bike, biking. And then I bike 18.5 miles with my family. That changes how I think about disease and health, the way I practice medicine, and the focus of my research. And 10 years later, I received the Linus Pauling Award for my groundbreaking clinical research in patient care protocols. So I am changing the face of medicine, and I've been committed to teaching other clinicians and the public how to use diet and lifestyle to change the trajectory of their healing journeys.
Yeah. So let's be clear. I mean, the diagnosis you were given was one of degeneration. It was degeneration without the hope of getting better, but maybe
Correct.
stabilizing.
So I originally diagnosed with relapse remitting MS, but within 3 years, I've converted to secondary progressive MS. My physicians are all very clear. Functions once lost will not return. I was very aggressive with all of the treatments that I could take, but I'd had basically 27 years of relentless decline, 20 years of relentless decline due to trigeminal neuralgia, and 7 years of relentless decline due to progressive MS.
And you were a doctor at the time, so I suppose this diagnosis was all the more frightening because you knew the diagnosis yourself.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. It is very scary. And actually, my wife said, Terry, you got to stop reading because all it's doing is getting you so upset. So I went for 3 years without reading any science about MS. But once I hit the wheelchair, like, well, screw that. I know how bad it's going to be. It's terrible. I'm going back to reading the science. And that's when, I began experimenting. And, I was really grateful because I could slow my decline, although I was still declining, but at least I was doing something. But that's when I began to turn things around. Yeah.
I think that's the most amazing part of your story is that, you took something which is, by orthodox textbooks, something that is meant to be degenerating, and you're actually now getting better.
Absolutely. And then most importantly, my chair of medicine at the time said, Terry, what you've done is remarkable. We need you to do a safety study, feasibility study, and test this in others. Could other people do this? And what happens? And so we did that back in 2010. We had 20 folks with secondary and primary progressive MS who implemented my complicated protocol. So one, it was remarkable that they could do this because these people were severely disabled, exhausted, and they did. And we had remarkable improvements in energy, in quality of life, in mental clarity, and in mood, in verbal reasoning. And half of them had clinically meaningful improvement in motor function. So then we started doing, so that was just breathtakingly exciting. Then we started doing some small pilot studies, again, that were all consistently positive. Then the next study that we did was funded by the MS Society, and that compared the SWANK diet, a low-fat diet, to the Wahls diet. Very exciting results, which we have written up, and the manuscript is under review. So hopefully in the very near future, that will be out for print. And then we have a couple more studies underway, and we are writing IRB protocols for 2 more studies. So we have a very active and exciting lab. And I have to meditate a lot at night in order to fall asleep because I so love our work. I love our mission that particularly when we're starting a new study, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is, because to do all of these things, we've interviewed a lot of people who are doing a lot of things, but most people are their N=1, if you like. Most people are their own experiment and it works for them. But to actually see if it's repeatable and reproducible, that's the next phase.
That is the key. That is the key. So the N=1, very important, and I want people to write that up, get it published in a peer-reviewed literature. Then can you repeat it in someone else? That's a case series. So that's what we did. Then you got the case series published. Then the next thing is, can other people do it prospectively? That's the little single arm prospective study. We did that. That's very exciting. Then the next thing is small randomized pilot study, controlled. We did that. Very exciting. Then the next thing is a larger randomized study. We did that. And so then we keep adding, more interesting studies. But if we're going to change the standard of care, you have to do clinical research.
Yes.
And single observations, very exciting, very innovative, very interesting, but nowhere near as important as prospective trials and done by people who are willing to take the time to write it up and publish it.
Yes. Yeah, and who know exactly the process and how to do it. That's another thing. It's a lot. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
So maybe you better tell us, a bit about your protocol, because I'm sure that's why we're all going to be wanting to know. Russ and I have been certainly doing a part of the diet piece, but
so I'm going to sort of break this down. If we want to improve our health, we're going to have to think about our wellness, our self-care routine. And that probably means growing some helpful habits and extinguishing some not so helpful habits. In my clinical studies, we ask people, why do you want to do this? What do you want your health for? What is going to inspire you to do the work when it's sort of tough? Yeah. So having that inner purpose, that inner drive, that mission statement, what I want my health for, that's sort of step number one. Then if we're going to focus on the diet, and I want your audience to know, this is far, far more than just a diet.
Yeah.
But we'll start with cleaning up your diet. The westernized diet, full of sugar, full of added sugars, full of simple carbohydrates, full of processed foods that might be, quote, keto-friendly or paleo-friendly or paleo-approved, but still have a lot of emulsifiers and stabilizers in them, food-like compounds that are feeding the wrong microbes in your gut, that are driving the inflammation. So step number one, that is uniformly very helpful. Get rid of the added sugars, reduce or eliminate the processed foods, and learn how to cook. Start with a few recipes that you enjoy. Cook using ingredients, preferably a lot of non-starchy vegetables in your protein source. Now, I prefer a paleo diet. However, I do recognize that there are people who are vegetarian or vegan for deeply held spiritual beliefs. And I'm not going to ask them to abandon their spiritual beliefs. So we'll work with them on how to structure their diet given their spiritual practices. So sufficient protein, non-starchy vegetables, preferably lots of greens, lots of sulfur-rich vegetables in the cabbage family, onion family, mushroom family, and deeply pigmented vegetables and berries, beets, carrots, berries, for example. Mm-hmm. That's a hallmark. Now, in addition, because many people, particularly if you have an autoimmune problem or cardiovascular disease, or frankly, insulin resistance, you may have unrecognized gluten sensitivity. That's the protein in wheat, rye, barley. And if you have gluten sensitivity, because of the amino acid sequence being similar, you likely also have casein sensitivity and therefore are sensitive to both gluten and dairy. So I ask people to remove those foods meticulously, carefully from your diet, which will mean reading ingredient labels for your supplements, for your medications, for your personal care products, for the food that you eat. I suggest making these changes as an experiment. So you can decide if you want to do this as a family or just you yourself, that I'm going to do this for a defined period. And if you're in my clinical practice, I'll ask you to do it for at least 3 months, preferably 6. If you're in my clinical practice at the VA, I would invite you to that conversation. And you might say, hell no, I can't do 3 months. And so I would kind of like, okay, so tell me, how long could you do the experiment? If you get to set when you start and when you end. And they might come back and say, well, yeah, I could do it for a month. They're like, okay, that's fine. We'll do the experiment for a month. Or they may come back and say, I could do it for 2 weeks. Okay, right. We'll do the experiment for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, you follow the diet. And you want to, if you're going to do the experiment, you want to be a good scientist. So actually do the experiment. So pick a time when you could take the foods you don't want to eat out of your house. You don't have to see them. Eat just the foods that you've identified you're going to be consuming. And you do that now for 2 weeks. And then assess your symptoms that were troublesome to you. And maybe it's mental health, maybe it's physical health, maybe it's a combination of both, and feel like, okay, things are improved. They're not improved, they're worse. I'm going to go back to what I was eating before. And I'll tell you, in my clinical practice at the VA, time and time again, my vets would, they'd come back and report in on the experiment. They'd say, doc, I was convinced that diet didn't do a damn thing for me. But then when I went back to the way I used to eat, oh my God, I felt terrible. So, I'm doing your diet because I do, in fact, feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, they get the comparison.
The person has to be ready to do the experiment. They need to be ready to be a good scientist to say, like, you know what? I want to try this. I want to try this intervention, and I'm not going to actually do it.
Yes.
And there's a big difference between doing an experiment and doing it half-assed. If you only sort of do the experiment, well,
doing it,
you only get sort of crappy results. You won't know if your intervention made any difference. And people seem to understand that when I have that conversation. Like, I understand that life is busy, it's happening, that this may not be the time you could do your experiment. Maybe it's because you've got big stressors at work, or your child is going through their major health crisis, or you're helping your spouse deal with their cancer. So no, this is not the time for you to take this on. But when it is time to take it on, you actually do the experiment, and you do it with intention, with fidelity, as carefully as you can run that experiment.
And Dr. Wahls, a couple questions. One is quantity and time of day. We've heard a lot about intermittent fasting, and how is this with proportions and time of day?
Okay, so I want to point out that this is all sort of relative. There's some great studies on calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding. And absolutely, calorie restriction, 22%. So eating only 70% of your recommended metabolic needs is your best for longevity. You're going to be chronically hungry the rest of your life. Humans will not tolerate that. So even the short-term studies show that free living humans will not do calorie restriction for very long. We get hungry and we eat. So then the next thing that's a little bit easier, intermittent calorie restriction. So every other day or 2 days a week, you eat to only 25% of what is allowed. That's a very severe calorie restriction, but it's only 1 day. You can sort of get through that for a little while. But most humans don't like being hungry. And so if you're going to be hungry every other day, even intermittent fasting in the research is very, very hard to sustain. Humans want to eat. It's a very strong biologic drive. But for those who can do it, intermittent fasting, great anti-aging, great metabolic reset, a lot of really wonderful things that intermittent fasting can do for you, if you can tolerate being hungry about half of your life. The research will tell us most humans over time will say, screw that shit, I want to eat food. Time restricted feeding. What we do is we narrow the window with which we're eating. And so that's a 6 to 8 hour eating window. So you eat during that time period. The research will tell us that that is much easier for people to sustain. And the benefits of time restricted feeding are not quite as potent as intermittent fasting or calorie restriction. That is true. But it's what people can do for the rest of their lives much more successfully. So I am much more open to having a conversation with my patients. And I describe all three and say, are you curious? Do you want to implement one of these three strategies? And then let the person drive that. I also described my dietary approach. And I have a spectrum from where they're at now, and I have a sense of what kind of eating now we can do to improve their eating pattern in a way sustainable for them. And so, in my Wahls protocol, and I talk about, we have sort of the pre-Wahls protocol, which is the Mediterranean diet. Then I put them on a gluten-free Mediterranean diet. Then I put them basically on Wahls level 1, which has more prescribed directions as to what kind of vegetables I want you to be eating and how much protein to eat. Then I put you on a paleo version, which now adds organ meat and seaweed and fermented vegetables. And then I may put you on an elimination diet to figure out what foods you're sensitive to. Or I may put you on a ketogenic diet, or I may put you on a fasting pattern, metabolic switching. But all of that, as I do that, I take into consideration what are their medical diagnoses, what are their current symptoms, what are their spiritual beliefs, what are they curious about implementing, because I want them to be successful. I do not serve my patients by saying, well, here's your problem, here's a solution, go do it, and I'll see you in a year. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be very successful. If I have a dialogue about their problems and discuss a possibility of interventions and mutually decide what interventions the person is comfortable they could implement and sustain, that will be successful. And it's not just about food. So we've been talking about food, yeah. But I want to make clear that the Wahls Protocol is a much more comprehensive wellness plan of which food is a part. And some folks are not at all ready to make food changes. So for them, I may be focused on the other aspects of wellness. And as we address those other aspects, be it light, sleep, meditation, purpose, connection, what I find is as they come back to see me, they may say, okay, I'm ready for the next wellness step. And as we keep building on their wellness self-care routine, they'll say, you know what, I actually have already implemented Wahls level 2, by the way. I forgot to mention that to you, but I did that last year. Mm-hmm. But they had to address some of the other elements of wellness first. They may have had to address their sleep and their stress reduction to lower the inflammation enough so that they could contemplate improving their diet. Because as you improve your diet, you're going to often experience some withdrawal, some craving, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So they have to have the energy sometimes.
They need to have the energy. They may have to make some improvements. Now, it's true. My preference is you start with diet. But if that's not where the person's at, but if they're ready to add meditation and exercise and their health improves enough, then they may be in a better place to say, you know what, I am ready to begin addressing these dietary changes.
There's a lot that we've talked about around the quantified self, and as people become sort of citizen scientists and citizen doctors and biohackers, they get to a point where they are obsessive about measurement. If you were to tell someone the 3 or 4 most important things to measure to track this on their own, what do you leave them with? Like, what are the things?
Sleep and movement.
Okay.
Sleep and movement. Those are the 2 that I'm most interested in.
Okay.
If you're not sleeping, it is incredibly inflammatory. If you are not moving, it is incredibly inflammatory.
Do you look at the stages of sleep, Dr. Wahls? I mean, I have a ring that looks at deep sleep, REM sleep.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Quite a revelation, actually, because I thought I was a good sleeper, but actually I realized I was not getting that much deep sleep, although I can sleep for England.
I got 3 hours last night.
Of deep sleep? That's
3 hours
good.
Deep sleep, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And I don't get 3 hours every night, but it's like, so I woke up this morning, felt really, really great. I had an hour and a half of REM and just over 3 hours of deep sleep. And one of my tips for really amping up your sleep is cold therapy, cold showers in the morning, a cold shower in the evening, or a cold bath or an ice bath. That can be really very, very helpful. I would also add, and what I like to do if I'm taking my cold bath or ice bath is to read in the bathtub for 20 minutes. And then I stop and I do a meditation. And then I get out, get into my bed. And I like doing a gratitude meditation. So the meditation, I like to visualize a period in my life. And I might start, my earliest memories, and even perhaps before my memories, visualizing my parents caring for me as an infant. And then I go through my childhood and the various things that my mom and my dad did for me. And I'm thanking them because as a child, you're often not thankful enough for all the wonderful things that your parents do for you. You're being sort of a bratty kid or a bratty, obnoxious teenager, and you're not grateful. So this is my opportunity to thank my mom and dad for all the wonderful things that they've done. Or I might do this during college or during my early professional career or my current professional career. And that act of gratitude is a profoundly anti-inflammatory, calming strategy. I love to do that as part of my unwinding and preparing for sleep.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, we had one of our previous guests, Boomer Anderson, was talking about gratitude journals. And actually that was one of our challenges. So we did do that. And you're right, it is very interesting because I always thought I had an attitude of gratitude, but actually writing it down makes a total difference, because then you really have to pick something specific and you can focus on it rather than just something nefarious that you're.
When the pandemic started, it was certainly a very stressful time for me professionally, and lots of reasons. Our daughter moved home during that time period, and so as part of our self-care routine, during our meals, we would run around the table and we expressed gratitude. We had to pick a topic and explain what we were grateful for. And, some days we're sort of stuck like, shit, I don't feel grateful for anything. And we're like, okay, well, come on, we got to come up with something here. And that was a very instructive exercise.
Right. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, we have, I have 4 kids and we do highs and lows. We've been doing it since they were very little. And the lows get less and the highs get higher, right? I've noticed over the years that there's a tendency to focus on the lows. I had a terrible day, blah, blah. But as we've done this for, my kids are in their 20s now, there's a lot more highs, right? They like to share their highs. That we don't live in the low part. We don't reward that. We like to reward the high part. So.
And another thing that we did with our kids that I really think was a wonderful parenting strategy was we would talk about the values for that month, and I would read their little goodnight stories, and we might talk about how Mickey Mouse was demonstrating courage. And then as they got a little bit older, I talked about how I was seeing courage at work. And what I saw was that my children, beginning around age 5, they could read very accurately the values at the playground, what demonstrated courage, love, faithfulness, perseverance. Now, every now and then I'd have to sort of reshape that conversation a little bit, but certainly by the time they were 7, they were exactly correct in their analysis of values-driven behaviors at school. And that left my children be emotionally more mature than their colleagues. Is just amazing insight. I would never have realized how attuned our children are to emotional intelligence and values at such a young age.
And I think probably now is the time that we really need that.
We absolutely need that.
Not just for the children, but for, we've had a pause, haven't we? And everybody's been locked in to a certain extent where we've had to reevaluate what's important. But now is the time to kind of go out with that health message, not just like you say, healthy body, but also in how you evaluate things, what you see as truth, how you evaluate news, how you take care of people's feelings. I think now is kind of the time that it's most needed, probably.
It'd be very helpful.
It would be very helpful going forward. You're totally right.
Yeah, we won't bring up why to get vaccinated, but that's a different topic for a different day. But it's incredibly insightful, and you're an incredible human being. Sarah every week brings her friends on, and I get to meet some of the most incredible people out there. One of the things that Sarah and I like to do is we do a 7-day challenge. Some of it we can do, some of it we can't, because the two of us are not in the same room or in the same country. But if there are things that we can do, we've done the practicing, the gratitude practicing and the gratitude journaling. We've done our sleep. We've done keto. What would be something that you would leave with us that might be a challenge to get us started on the Wahls Protocol?
I would have a 7-day challenge to have 3 cups of greens every day. Incredibly helpful in healing. And I'd want you to rotate those greens. So you might have arugula or parsley or spinach, kale. So that's one challenge. Then the other challenge, this one will be a little for your more advanced listeners.
Okay.
So my advice is 200 different plant species in a year. So let's see if you can get up to 50 in a week.
50, right, okay.
50 different plant species in a week. And you can do that with teas, with spice. I'm letting you do it with teas and spices and herbs. You should be able to get to 75 without breaking a sweat.
Does coffee count?
Yes, coffee would count.
Okay.
So if you do coffee and green tea, now you're up to 2.
Okay.
Right.
So 75 should be an absolute breeze. I can do 200 within a month. So 75 should be a breeze. It'll take some concentration. You have to pay attention to that. For those of you who are very early in your health journey, 3 cups of greens every day, that's a lovely place to start. But if you're more advanced, go for 75. If you're a high achiever, 200 by the end of the month.
Done.
Okay, well, challenge accepted.
Yes.
I've actually landed in a kind of the ethnic area of the Hague, and there's all kinds of things here that I don't usually get where I am in England. So I'm hoping I can introduce some different things. I'll get photographic evidence. So we'll see. But thank you. And thank you again for coming. And we'll definitely, I'm glad we can be a small piece in promoting what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And can I put a pitch out for your audience who wants to visit my website, terrywahls.com. If you want a 1-page handout, terrywahls.com/diet. That's an overview. And we have all sorts of courses for the lay person and courses for the clinician who wants to learn how to use these principles in your practice.
And that's
cool. We also do a blog that goes with it. So we'll make sure that we include all of your links and everything in there.
Okay, marvelous.
Yeah,
and do share that with us so that we can share it as well.
Absolutely. And it's Terry, Terry, WAHLS.
That's
perfect. All right. Thank you so much. We are very grateful, and we will take this on. I'm going to go bury my hands in the dirt outside and start growing as well.
I want to know, are you guys going for the low, the 3 cups of greens, the medium, 75? Or are you high achievers and you're going for 200 by the end of the month?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for the 200 because, like I say, I'm in a part of the world now where there's just a lot of different things going on here. So I think I can get up there, and I think I can beat Russ, which is always good.
Russ,
yes,
Russ,
Sarah will beat me. I already do the greens. I've already challenged and taken on number 1. I'm going to go with try 75. That's going to be a challenge for me because I have my wife and my daughter are picky eaters, so I have to encourage them to do this as well. So if I can do that, then 200.
Oh, that'll be good. This is a great family activity. And we encourage that as a family activity to pick out what is the goal for how many different plants in the week and the month. It gets kids far more excited about eating new foods. And then the other thing that happens if you have multiple siblings, then you have sibling competition. Like, I did 12 new foods this week. Well, I'm going to do 14. See you. And so that accelerates.
Russ and I have a bit of that going on. Yeah.
No, we'll do
that
it.
accelerates the growth.
We'll do it on Slack. I'm going to just take pictures and put it on Slack so you can see it. Okay. We are.
That'll be marvelous.
Yeah, we are grateful. Thank you so much. And where are you located?
I'm in Iowa City, Iowa. So that's in the middle of the U.S., about 3 hours from Chicago.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and we are grateful.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you very much. Take
You're
care.
very welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Sarah, I really loved Dr. Wahls. She was great.
Yeah, I knew you'd like her. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think she's just fantastic. And I'm so glad that we can do our small part in promoting the work that she's doing.
Yeah, now we didn't talk too much about it, but the debilitative, degenerative disease she has MS, correct?
Yep. Yes,
yeah.
She does.
And this is several years ago she was diagnosed. I mean, she looked fabulous.
I think this is 15 years ago. So she's gone from having this diagnosis and being in a wheelchair and thinking really that's it, and she's a doctor, so she knows what's going on. So she's kind of thinking, how can she say goodbye to her kids and leave on a high? So she wants to kind of model for them, okay, this is how you deal with something. You just give it everything. And then lo and behold, she gets better and starts this whole protocol teaching. She actually educates doctors, which is another reason why she's so fantastic, because really, she's fighting the battle from the inside.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Brilliant.
We talked a little bit about last week, our Reiki friend, about the power of the mind too. Like, I think about Deanna, I think about Abel, I think about all of the people we talk to. It is a combination of understand thyself, quantify the body so you know it, taking care of your mind and what you put into your body and what you put into your brain. But there's also this part of it too of really changing the way you think and changing the approach that you have.
Yeah, mindset. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Out of all of the people that we've spoke to, that's really come out. You really see. I mean, I know Deanne was one that you really took to, and I know that she definitely has that mindset. But all of our guests really have, been very holistic in their approach.
Totally, absolutely, and she really made an impact on me, and I think I did buy her book. I now have Abel's book, her book. I have everyone's book, and I think the fascinating part of the diet shift is that it's progressive, right? Like we talked about Eugene, where like you've got to be in the right physical set to do some of the more extreme things, but hers is progressive. Like you work your way to it. And so even in her challenge she gave us, it's like, don't do all 200 different plants. If you can, great, but try 50, try 75. And
I think she's all about success. She's all about finding ways to make people succeed. Some of our other guests are kind of like, well, I'm doing this, you can take it or leave it, because there is that individuality. But certainly Terry Wahls, she's a doctor, she's going to find workarounds. And if she can only get you to eat one more cup of greens, she will take that.
But she talked a lot about that. Yeah, she talked a lot about like knowing your patient, right? This isn't like buy the book and just go. And if you do exactly what I say, no, it has to be right for you, which is, getting into this customized piece of it is a really interesting part of biohacking. And we're getting to a place now with technology and understanding your Oura Ring and devices that obviously you work on every day are all about creating these, the ability for you to measure yourself. So,
Yes, individual responsibility, but then we have all these wonderful people that either kind of are modeling the behavior or even a bit of hand holding in the case of Terry Wahls, so there's something for everyone. Wherever you're at, you can make either, a massive change and do it all at once and be a full-on biohacker, or you can do it stepwise, whatever works for you, really. It's just constantly thinking, okay, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday, for example.
Yeah.
You don't need to compare yourself to anyone else. You don't have to be, totally like Eugene, super fit, doing yoga every day. You can just be better than you were yesterday as well.
That's all it is. And I think you and I are great examples. We talked about this last episode of, if you saw us, a year ago when we started the Rebel Scientist podcast to today, like mentally we're better. We were mentally drained, in quarantine, both of us, right?
Yeah.
You're out and about.
Yeah. And even though I've done a lot of this work, I have done a lot of research, but to actually do it and put it in practice and do these weekly challenges, it makes a difference.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So we were talking about the things we're doing and the things we're eating. Let's talk about some of the crazy plant species that you're putting into your body. Because she said 50 to 75. I'm close. I have some stuff, but mine aren't as crazy. You probably have crazier things that you eat.
Well, I'm feeling a little bit smug about this week's challenge because I do eat a huge variety of all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here in The Hague right now, and so I kind of have not got my usual resources, but I have found all kinds of things. Like, for example, I'm here in the more ethnic area of The Hague. So I now have access to a whole plethora of mainly Turkish shops. So I've been, to be honest, a lot of things I don't even think I know the names of them because I've just been going along and just gathering up, if I see a load of green herbs, I just take one of each thing.
Yeah.
And also they have an excellent Oriental shop here.
Oh,
so
wow.
To get my numbers up, I've been doing all different kinds of seaweed because I think that, it counts, all the different seaweeds. So I've had the nori ones, I've had the ones with wasabi on, I've had the ones in the little shaker. I've also went out yesterday into Amsterdam and had all kinds of crazy Dutch delicacies there. I even had raw soused herring. I had raw eel. I had salmon. I had at least 3 or 4 other kinds of fish. So already I'm high up on the fish species. Yeah. So with the seaweed, the herbs and the fish, on top of everything else I usually do, because I usually do the vegetable thing. To be honest, I had a head start because I met Terry, however long ago it was, 5 or 6 years ago, and she already had me on eating chia seeds and sunflower seeds. So I already have a big mixed pot of seeds that I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking here. I've got all my, I've got all my different powders and things that I've collected, all kinds of different nuts. So yes, I definitely think I'm on it. I think the weirdest thing I've ate this week is a raw herring, bones and all, straight down.
I think I saw that picture. I think that you had that picture. Yeah, I think I saw that picture. Yeah,
I could get a medal for that because that was not easy.
No. Our whole family went to Amsterdam a few years ago, and we tried it too. And all my kids were like, "No way, not doing it." And I was like, "This is delicious." The nut. I'm a marketer here, so I'm nuts for nuts. I mean, I got to be careful how I say that too. But there's I have, because I've been doing since our DN episode, I've been really ketoing, and I find that they're just, for me, like where I used to use nuts as like things I would garnish my things, my salad with, right? But now it's like that's my snack. Like I'm not eating any crisps or chips. I'm eating almonds, and I'm eating the low sodium ones, right? Like I'm eating the ones that aren't like loaded with salt and flavorings and peanuts and things like that as well.
Yeah, and you can make all kinds of porridges out of nuts and seeds. So this morning I had porridge with hemp parts, they're called. So that's the part of the hemp plant. Also flax seeds and linseeds and poppy seeds and the chia seeds, because they're the ones that swell up and kind of make it into a meal. But then ground hazelnut, And what was the other ground one? I think actually it was ground cashew nut.
Are you making your own? Or are you just buying it grounded and blending it together?
You can buy it ground in a bag, like flour.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get almond flour, which people use for cakes, but here I found hazelnut and cashew nut flour. So these are all ways that, one, you can get your species up if you're doing the challenge, but two, you can make something like porridge, which was something I was missing, because when you're on the keto, oats are a bit of a no-no. So these are all ways you can do that and just add a lot of nutrition, because I think that's really Terry's point why she got us to do this challenge, is because she wants you to eat a rainbow of things. So she doesn't want you to just eat green cabbage. She wants you to go for a range of species. So you have the purple one, you have the bok choy, you have the rainbow chard, you have all the different ones, because in each of those different plants there are different phytonutrients.
She talked about the deep pigment vegetables, which is like beets and carrots.
Yeah, anything with a dark pigment, because that's where the phytonutrients are. But also, interestingly, if you can get something that's raw or wild, that also has more of those nutrients in. Things like dandelion leaves. I've got dandelion leaves here. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and they're probably in your garden, Russ. I mean, you're there in sunshine. You could probably go and harvest them. Then you also, the wild ones usually have more nutrients in, because of you're getting it straight from the soil, and also the way they've been raised. They're having to deal off insects and things more, and so they have more of this kind of stuff in it. Whereas if you have something that's in a greenhouse, the plant doesn't have to produce as many chemicals.
Again, fascinating friends of Sarah Turner.
Yeah, she was brilliant. I mean, I can't claim her entirely as my friend, but she's definitely someone who I admire and I'm glad to be connected to.
Yeah, so I'm me as well. I'm finding gut health to be like, I focused, you and I talked about that, since 2016, I focused on brain and mind and keeping myself healthy there. And now I think taking care of my gut is what I've learned from Sarah Turner. It's so important what you put in your body.
It's so connected. I think probably they're going to find in the future that it's such an overlooked area, and it's going to be where they look for most. I mean, they already say that Parkinson's starts in the gut. What else does,
Yeah. That's right. Well, I did jokingly say, does coffee and tea count? She said yes. But I wonder how she feels about wine and alcohol. I didn't talk about that. I mean, I'm wondering what her stance is on with the Wahls Protocol with alcohol.
Well, I don't know, because, I mean, if you have a little bit of red wine, I mean, there are a lot of nutrients in grape skins. Mm-hmm. And, some people do say, a small glass of red wine every now and then certainly add to that nutrition. I mean,
but not a whole bottle.
No, I don't think she'd be big on a whole bottle of or tequilas or margaritas. Yeah. But I think, I think possibly a small glass of red wine.
Yeah. Well, it's again, it's a deep pigment. That's a fruit. I guess it's a red white wine, not white wine. But, okay. I love it. Thank you so much again. And we'll have all of Dr. Wahls' information up on our blog with her book and all that fun stuff too.
Yes, we certainly will. Yes. Take care, Russ. I look forward to next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Rebel Scientist Podcast is a Breaking the Gray production, created by Russ Eisenman and Paul Wood, hosted by Sarah Turner, music and sound editing by Logan Shea. For more information and other fantastic podcasts, visit breakingthegray.com. That's gray with an E, breakingthegray.com. Breaking the Gray.